Four teenagers murdered in Moscow, Idaho. College students that were three were roommates, one wasn't, and it's not getting enough press coverage. It's like nobody even cares about it because there's no narrative attached to it. President Joe Biden, as everybody knows, called the owner of Club Q in Denver or in the Colorado area where the mass shooting took place and gave his condolences to the club owner, which is really sad because now we're talking about a club that, everybody goes to drink and everybody goes to party and all that. And it's a tragedy what happened there. But what I want to know is why hasn't Joe Biden or the Biden administration reached out to the families of the four teenagers who were brutally murdered and give his condolences to them? And why is this not getting enough press coverage? Why? Well, because there's no narrative attached to it. So it's not, there's no reason or nothing that will forward Biden's political gain or the Biden administration's political gain. So they're just ignoring it. And I would like to also talk about what I think happened and why the killings happened. And it's a possible serial killer, which it could be. And I'm going to give some advice to the ladies from my street smarts and what I've learned through the years. Of course, I'm an ex-convict that's completely changed my life around, but I did do a lot of time and I've been around people like this that do stuff like this. And I've actually talked to them and I can kind of, being street smart, you can understand what's going on in their mind and what they're thinking. And then another thing is you can usually tell when somebody's a fucking creep. The problem is people don't pay attention to their surroundings. So we're going to get into that as well. I am Mr. Big.
I'm Kelly Marie.
And this is the American You Show. Four Moscow, Idaho teenagers are brutally murdered. And like I said before, it's not getting enough press coverage. And I'm going to let everybody know what I think happened here and what the problem is and why this happened and how it could have been avoided. Because there's a lot of different scenarios that are played out here and we don't really know the circumstances. But I will tell you this. What I'm going to say on this podcast may help any young ladies out there who could be facing the same issues, because the problem is people don't pay attention to their surroundings anymore. They just go on about their business. And then you have three of them are roommates. I think the girls were roommates. So, that's a target for a weirdo easily. If you're watching a house and the house, if he has some kind of, which I think it was some kind of sexual thing that the killer had going on. But I think what happened was, since there was a male there, it kind of fucked it up. Mm-hmm. I think it fucked up his fantasy or whatever the killer wanted to do. And there is an issue with this. And one of the main issues is the three teenage roommates that were living there together. There was no male presence. So, of course, that made them easy targets. And a lot of people think, well, women are equal to men, which they're not when it comes to situations like this. And people are very careless nowadays. They don't really pay attention to their surroundings. And that's a big problem with society.
Well, I also think that, women do have a very strong intuition, and they do have we do have a lot of gut feelings, but a lot of the times we don't know how to confront those feelings. Like if we're in, for instance, a Walmart, there's a lot of these Walmart weirdos going around where they follow you around, or you feel that, that your gut talking to you, and instead of looking directly at the person that is following you or making you feel uncomfortable to make them feel uncomfortable, we tend to look away and feel uncomfortable ourselves and continue that feeling. And a lot more women need to be able to confront that and say, hey, I see you looking at me, and I'm not going to allow this. I'm not going to allow you to make me feel uncomfortable. So a lot more women need to stand strong in their bodies and trust their intuitions, because stuff like this does happen. And And unfortunately, a lot of the times it goes unnoticed because we tend to like downplay our own intuitions.
Well, that's true. And you mean intuitions or instincts?
Yes.
Women having instincts like that, which a lot of women do. But when you go out, say, with your friends and you're in a college environment and there's a lot of young people around you, you don't think it could happen to you. And then you go to bars, clubs, anything like that. You start drinking. So of course your instincts are lowered. Your inhibitions are lowered.
Yes.
And you're not paying attention to what's going around. But if you really look around and if you really pay attention to your surroundings, because what I think is this guy, whoever did this, they probably have been watching these girls for a while. I don't think it was just a random act that happened one night. So you got to pay attention to see if something's amiss, if you see this person. But the problem is a lot of people, they're not paying attention. They're drinking, they're getting drunk, they're having fun. They don't think that this will ever affect them. And unfortunately, in this circumstance, it did.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate that this isn't getting enough coverage as it should, because I mean, a lot of people need to be aware of things like this going on, you know?
Well, one thing I want to say to women is women and people who are living, you know, in households full of women, roommates, college roommates, whether it be just friends, anything like that. The young generation now, they go out, they party every night, they drive home or they catch an Uber home, not aware of their surroundings and who could be watching them or who could be paying attention. Because there's a lot of fucking weirdos out there. And if you really pay attention, you could see them.
Yeah.
It's not like you can't tell when somebody is watching you. But the problem when you start introducing alcohol and you start introducing more people into the situation, you lose that ability to watch.
Yeah, to make the
make the correct judgment.
Yes,
like, hey,
exactly.
This fucking guy is watching me. And to be honest with you, most weird motherfuckers, you could tell.
Yeah.
You can really tell. They have a certain look to them. They have a certain stare. And the way that they carry themselves is real, like, timid, I would say.
Well, I can't even think of the name. The guy who was really handsome, who was going around killing college women.
Bundy?
Yes, but he was handsome.
Yeah, he might be handsome, and other guys might be handsome, but they're real. He was a psychopath, and he was real confident about the shit that he did.
Yeah. So it's really hard sometimes, to make those discernments.
But it's a different era.
Yeah.
We live in a different era, so you have to make wiser decisions.
Yes.
And because with social media, with and back then it wasn't an everyday let's go to the bar like in a college type environment where you're getting fucked up every day. Now I know that these girls were at a sorority party. I'm reading prior to this event, but I don't think probably the killer wasn't at the sorority party. I think that there was other circumstances where he was probably watching them. In the meantime,
or waiting for them to come,
waiting for them,
watching their house, their apartment, waiting for them to come home.
Yeah, because look, so you're a fucking weirdo, and you see because the girls were all pretty.
Yeah,
they're all pretty girls living in a house by themselves, and if he's watching the house and rarely sees any men there, and knows that it's all women, of course he's going to think, being a man, that he has an advantage in the situation. And even though there was no sexual type, at least they haven't released any sexual type stuff that might have happened there. I think that might be because he was surprised, and there was a guy that was sleeping there, which could have angered him, and made him, go ballistic like he did. Because basically all of his fantasies or anything that the guy was thinking was just thrown out the window because now there's a guy there.
Yeah.
That could be one thing. Or another thing, it wasn't sexual at all. But I seriously think that this guy was watching the house probably, and it had something to do with it was sexual, because it usually is in these types of situations. Yeah. The way that these kids were brutally murdered, I would say more it could be
and they were stabbed.
They were stabbed to death.
That takes an animalistic nature to stab somebody.
Well, yeah. Well, usually in circumstances when people are stabbed as bad as they supposedly were, it's something personal.
Yeah.
There's like a personal attachment there. And I doubt that this was like a ex-boyfriend. I think they ruled all those people out. When I say there's a personal attachment there, basically, he was very upset. Something happened to trigger this guy to make him very upset to where he brutally stabbed them the way they were. They said there was defensive wounds. So a lot of people are like, well, fuck, man, how did this guy get away with stabbing all these people and nobody waking up and hearing anything?
And it's a college campus too. Like,
well,
where
it's off campus though. It's off campus housing.
Oh,
so
but,
this is
okay. So, but is it connected to the college? So it's off campus housing, like a sorority home?
It wasn't a sorority home. They were just 3 roommates. And if you look at it, it would look really kind of secluded. It wasn't like in the middle of a city or anything like that. I mean, in the middle of like a large
like
populated
area, like a downtown,
like a downtown or
college
apartment buildings or
okay.
anything like that. I'm not saying stuff doesn't happen in those type of areas, but I am saying that there's more opportunity for the killer to strike when he sees, because look, he's going to be like, okay, there's 3 women living here. Okay. They probably don't have any guns or weapons. They're college students, you know, they probably aren't going to protect themselves. And they probably in their head, they're not thinking about, hey, I'm going to get killed or I need to be careful. They probably felt safe in the environment that they're in. And that's the problem. You can never feel safe. You always have to be on your toes. And that's why that parents need to teach their children about street smarts. You have to be street smart. Book smart and coddling doesn't help.
No.
Coddling your children. You have to teach your children to be able to survive, and you have to teach your children to be able to protect themselves and not think that they are perfectly safe. And what they see something on the news or hear about something, that it cannot happen to them, because it can happen to anybody.
Yeah. I mean, it's important to arm them with the knowledge of being aware of your surroundings, you know, and following that and making sure that you have that, even though it may not happen to you, you know, but it could. And that's the possibility. It's better to be prepared and know what to do in a situation than have no idea what to do or how to handle yourself or be surprised.
Well, I've been around a lot of psychopaths when I was doing my time in the system. And I've talked to quite a few of them. I remember being in high power. I was getting in a lot of trouble when I was younger, and I was in a high power part of just the county jail. We're not even talking about prison here. We're talking about county jail, because people like this that commit crimes this heinous come into the prison system. They're automatically on a hit list. They're dead. The inmates don't put up with that shit. They don't put up with child molesters. They don't put up with any of that. If you come in with some shit like that, you're finished.
Yeah.
You're going to have to PC up. And even at that point, you're still not safe. But when I was so I've never really met anybody who actually committed crimes horrific like that, but I have met murderers. And I know some people on death row. I've actually talked to one of the Menendez brothers. He was my neighbor at one time, Lyle. He didn't really want to talk about his case so much, but the way he carried himself, you could see he was just a little bit off. And he distanced himself. I don't know if that's because the environment he was in and that he was scared of the environment he was in, because he was such a high profile case that he had to pay people in order to stay safe on the yard. But when I was in the high power section of the county jail, like my neighbor was Timothy Russell, who in Riverside, he was in a domestic violence case, and he went up to the cops showed up. And when he knew the cops were coming, right, his wife called the cops. He ran up on top of the mountain with an M1. And as soon as the cops pulled up, he sniped both of them out and killed them. Right. He's dead now, but he wasn't executed, but they did give him the death penalty. And I actually, was in a cell next to him, and I used to walk by when I'd go out for showers, because we were only allowed out one at a time. And I'd be like, dude, what's up, man? And he was just like really distant. It wasn't the fact that he was a psychopath. The fact is he was more like, look, me and my wife had a disagreement. We weren't getting along. What gives the police the right to come and fuck with me? You know what I mean? Like, we could have solved it ourselves. That was his feeling though, right? So I wouldn't actually call him a psychopath type killer. But then I had another neighbor, his name was Billy, and they put a celly in there with him, and he killed him.
Just right off the bat.
Just right off the bat. They gave him 2 cellies. After he did that, gave him another celly.
Wow.
And he stabbed the other celly. That is a psychopath. So psychopaths, if you really look back into history, they are part of evolution. They're a part of evolution. You needed a psychopath. Let's look back into the dark ages, right? And maybe the Viking days and stuff like that. There's those one guys who would go to war and they'd have their sword and they just didn't care.
Yeah.
They would run in there and they'd just start killing the enemies. And they would be like, yeah, fuck yeah, you know, and those were psychopaths. So psychopaths actually come from a genetic line. It's a part of evolution. Now, I'm not really a big evolution believer, but I do believe in adaptation. So I believe that those genes, those lines run through. But I also believe that a lot of people, even though there's a lot of psychopaths in this world that don't act on their instincts. Yes. Okay. They're all over the place. And there's some that do. And there's something else that triggers that for them to act on it, whether it be online porn, whether it be social media, whether it be just looking at a girl knowing they can't have her and they want to, or maybe it's a domination thing.
Yeah.
So this guy with these murders, I think that he's probably was watching the girls for quite some time, and he noticed that they were living alone. And in his mind, he played out that these girls probably don't have any weapons. They probably don't have any security. It would be easy for him to get into the house because maybe there's a lot of traffic in and out of the house, and he's watching that, and he could see like, okay, there's really no security system there. I don't see any alarms. There's a lot of traffic going in. So if I approach or come into the house, because this happened at like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
I come into the house and nobody's going to even notice that I'm there. And then maybe he was thinking in his head, like, well, I'm going to wait for these people to go out and get drunk and get fucked up and know that they're going to be crashed hard. They're going to be knocked out. And since they're knocked out and they're sleeping, and they're, you know, kind of in drunk sleeping, they're not going to wake up. So any noises of coming in the house is not going to wake them or arouse them.
Yeah.
And now you have another person who's like coherent and hasn't been drinking, and you go up in their house and they hear something, they're more likely to wake up. So I think he probably planned it with all these different because they're smart.
Yeah,
people that do this stuff aren't stupid. They're smart.
The thing is that, you know, nowadays with everything being delivered to your home, you have DoorDash, you have, you know, Postmates, you have Domino's, you have, you know, anything that you need can be delivered to you. And that's making everybody easy and like an open door to have somebody, a stranger, come to your home, see you, and then, you know, have your information, know you live alone, or possibly you live alone at that one encounter, and then now they have their eye on you. That's
another thing, and that's a good, valid point. So I wonder if the police and the authorities are looking into possible DoorDash workers or Grubhub workers, because a lot of college students, they order their food like that. They order pizza. They don't really cook, you know. They're living
DoorDash.
life. So they use DoorDash, they use Grubhub, they use Instacart, they use all that. So I think the police should be looking into that scenario, because that makes a lot of sense. Because when a DoorDash worker or anybody like that comes and sees, you know, to the house on multiple occasions and sees, oh wow, there's these 3 pretty girls that are living here by themselves at all times, it's an opportunity for them. And a lot of times these people may not even plan on committing crimes, but most crimes are committed by opportunity.
Yes.
They see opportunity, and when they see that opportunity, that's when they strike.
Even people that come to put your internet in or connect your stuff, because we heard about that one case where was it a Verizon? It was No, that was a cable.
A
cable. So they came and he put cable into this older woman's house, this elder lady's house, and came back and then murdered her, you know, and killed her in cold blood. And
the cable company, that was one of the biggest lawsuits. I think they got $1 billion, right?
Yeah.
For not screening their
employee
that
but still,
went
like,
into their
again,
house.
this is could still be somebody that has this thought process behind them but has never acted on it, and now they're in a position to where, hey,
Opportunity.
I have opportunity now I can act on it, and maybe they won't ever find me. And people fall victim to this type of stuff because this older woman was living alone, and she didn't have people that came to check on her. I think she was deceased for a week or something before somebody found her.
Yeah, not really sure. I read the story, but I don't really remember it. But you could look it up because there was a big lawsuit that was just...
It was huge.
I think it was here in Texas. I think it was Texas. I'm pretty sure it was here in Texas. But that's what I'm saying is opportunity.
Yes.
Okay, so they might be a psychopath. They might have these crazy thoughts in their head, but they don't act on them. But then some random opportunity comes up, and they start thinking about it, and their little wheels start ticking around, and they're like, "Fuck," and they keep watching, and that's how this is initiated. Now, one thing I have to say is DoorDash and Grubhub and all these other companies, they could screen their employees, but they can't screen. They're not screening them mentally
at all.
They don't know what their complete background is, how they grew up.
Yeah, they're just looking to see if there's a criminal background.
Yeah, and these people are coming, and a lot of these psychopaths don't have criminal backgrounds.
Yeah,
they don't have shit like that, and they're coming to the homes, and they're looking inside the house. They're delivering the food. And on multiple occasions, say they've been to the house on multiple occasions, each time they come back, they're like, okay. And they're scoping more shit out. And then all of a sudden, they're like, okay, I see what's going on. It's time to strike.
Yeah.
And maybe they show up all the time and say, and I'm not saying that these poor, students were drunk or anything like that. But I'm thinking of a college type environment, and there's a lot of drinking that goes on there. So I'm thinking maybe they're showing up most of the time at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, and people are always fucked up. And they're like, oh, these guys are always fucked up. There's 3 girls that live here. That's opportunity. I'm going to strike that way.
Or just even with the fact of them being women.
For sure.
just being a woman, like that makes us more susceptible to this type of behavior, to this type of, to these people, and it makes it harder for us to just live. So it's more important for women to be on edge. I mean, unfortunately, we have to live that way, and because we're in a society where people can try to get away with this type of stuff. I came across this thread on TikTok where they're throwing out like information for women that live alone, or women that have just one roommate or something like that, but there's no male presence, where when you order DoorDash or something like that, you always call out, even if nobody is home, you call out and you say, hey, food's here. And then there was another one that stitched to that video and said, I came that she grew up alone and she traveled alone. And what she did was she went to the Goodwill, bought some old dirty work boots, mudded them up, and kept them in front of her door at all times. And she said she lived like that and she traveled like that. She went and she stayed in 12 different state parks and always had those muddy boots out front of that door because the muddy boots look like a man's living there, And
yeah, and when there's a male presence around and there's a male presence, they're not going to strike. They're going to be scared.
Exactly.
It's going to take, because their advantage is gone.
Yes.
Completely gone. Like, and parents that have your girls living alone or in college, or they have roommates, you need to teach them. You need to be like, look, you need to always pay attention to your surroundings. Don't go to the bar or club and get drunk and go home and not pay attention to your surroundings.
Yes.
Even your Uber driver.
Yes.
Even because there's been multiple murders and homicides from Uber. So even your Uber driver, you can't trust anybody. And that's a big problem because these young kids are not street smart. They don't have the street smarts.
And a lot of the times they think that, someone that's smiling at you is going to be your friend or someone that's nice to you. And unfortunately, that's not the truth. That's not the reality in which we live in. Just because someone smiles at you doesn't mean that they have good motives.
No, they don't. Most of the time, they don't have good intentions when they randomly come up. And that's one of the problems facing women today is if you know, because a lot of women are saying, hey, I'm independent. I want to do this on my own. I want to be by myself. Well,
Get strapped.
Well, you need to
Fucking get
yeah, you
strapped.
need to either strap up, you need to take some self-defense classes, and you need to pay attention to your surroundings and pay attention to the people that you fuck with.
Yeah.
Because you never know who is going to do that.
Just like that young lady that went to Mexico with a group of friends.
Oh, and they fucked her up.
They fucked her up, and she ended up dying.
Yeah.
And that, again, you don't know who you're hanging out with. You don't know these people. You know what I mean? Like, you need to be aware of who you're hanging out with and never be, you know, at someone's beck and call. Like, they're going to see you as someone that's going to be easily manipulated, easy to use, and you just are a good person at heart, because that's how I am, you know? And people take
everywhere you
advantage
go,
of
you're
that.
strapped.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm strapped.
All the time.
All the time. And I'm constantly on my toes watching to see, you know, who's around me. If somebody looks shady or if somebody's doing something that just seems off to me, I'd rather just turn around, leave my whole cart, and walk out if that's the case, if I'm somewhere like that.
So what are your tips for women that are living alone?
I think the muddy boots, but I think it's very important that you get some self-defense, okay? And I would suggest you buy a gun. Go to the shooting range and learn how to use a weapon, you know? And constantly, it's just trust your instincts. It's so important that you trust your instincts and stay aware of your surroundings and know how to handle. And don't be afraid to look at people in their eyes. If you feel that someone's staring at you, don't look down, don't look away because it's making you feel uncomfortable. You need to look back at them and make them feel uncomfortable as well. That way they know that you see them. And have your phone, call somebody. If you're feeling uncomfortable, call someone on FaceTime and be like, hey, you know, I feel uncomfortable. I'm here. This person's following me. You know, he looks like this or whatever. And make them, who fucking cares? Even if the man doesn't or woman.
Even if it's not true.
Even if it's not true.
If you have a feeling.
Yeah, trust your feeling. And because your instincts never will steer you wrong.
No, you always got to trust your instincts, and you usually in situations like that you can kind of feel it it's like a feeling in the air, because those are survival instincts that were passed down from generation to generation to us, as well as your peripherals.
Yes,
you should always be. They were put there for a reason.
Yes.
And that's a survival instinct as well, your peripheral vision. Okay, so you could see something and catch it. And, you know, and creeps aren't hard to spot usually.
No, and the thing is that women, you know, being raised as a woman, you're taught to, you know, always be polite, you know, don't try, you know, always be kind to others, never, you know, misread someone. Now it's time for women to really take up space, be loud, know that you see people and have them see you seeing them. You know what I mean? Like, you need to acknowledge other people.
Yeah, like, I see you, motherfucker.
Yeah, I'm not going to let you make me feel uncomfortable. Yeah. It's that simple. Like, you need to take up space and stand firm within your body and on your feet and get strapped
and pay attention.
And pay attention. You know, and for this case not to be all over the news because the killer still hasn't been found.
No,
you
not
know,
at all.
for it to not be all over the news and for President Biden to not have spoken about it, it really just shows, like, man, you are.
Well, it's because they don't care. That's the problem. Is it doesn't fit a narrative that they can use for political gain.
Yeah, because they weren't shot,
and they're white kids.
Yeah, and they weren't shot, so there was no gun. And they were white kids on a college campus.
They weren't gay, they weren't homosexual, nothing like that. They were just white kids. I mean, I don't know I don't know their sexual, you know, orientation or anything like that. So I'm not going to specify on it. But I know that the circumstances surrounding what happened in no way, shape, or form could have forwarded this administration's political gain.
Yes.
So they didn't speak on it. They're not calling and they're not making an outrage. It's not all over the news. And unfortunately, for young adults lost their lives and nobody's talking about it.
And there's somebody out there running rampant. Who knows if he's crossed state lines? Who knows if he's still in the town?
Well, what they're saying is that they kind of put two. So there was a stabbing in another area about not too far away, and another area that kind of that are kind of like, they look like the same circumstances happen. So it could be a possible serial killer, but I can't specify on it because they're still doing the investigation. But I think one big part of the investigation is to look into DoorDash, Grubhub,
cable guys, anybody that has contact with the home,
that has been into the house,
even
landlords.
Dispensary. Well, I mean, they're in Idaho, so
I don't know the rules over there.
Yeah,
so.
but I mean,
any type of deliveries to the house, any type of work that's been done around the house, landlords, workers. That's what needs to be looked into.
Yeah.
More than anything, because a lot of these people, like I said, opportunity presents itself. So this person may have been in a shell and not ready to commit any type of crimes, but then they see an opportunity and they're like, hey, I could fucking do this.
Yeah.
I could do this. I can get away with this, and that's an issue. So ladies, if you're living alone, which you should get a man. That's what you should do, because that's what's going to protect you the most, because that's a man's job, is to protect his family and to protect the females. That's what men do.
But men nowadays, I mean, in college, I don't think they're men. Well, so I don't know. I can't
fuck
speak
boys.
on
There's
it.
a lot of fuck boys, I know. And that's another problem, is the masculinity in men is just so
down.
It's deep and buried. It's not really there anymore. And we'll get into that in another podcast.
Episode,
But either have a male roommate, protect yourself, stay strapped, be aware of your surroundings. Don't go to the bar, don't go to the club and get fucked up and just go catch an Uber home and think that everything's going to be okay, because I'm sure these students felt the same way, that they didn't know that they were going to get murdered while they were sleeping that night.
Yeah.
So they obviously missed something that they could have seen. Security. You should have security in your house, a very loud security system. Make sure your windows and doors are locked.
Even if it's just like one of those Ring cameras, like in the corner where it's unnoticeable. But I mean, obviously you want something that's going to wake you up, No,
like something on your windows, something on your doors that's loud enough to wake you up.
Yeah.
Okay. When you're getting home, pay attention. Like if you leave somewhere, say you're driving home, whether it be from a Walmart, whether it be from any type of store, keep an eye, see if anybody's following you.
Yeah.
Because that happens a lot.
It does. And a lot of the times
you.
you hear a lot about, people going to Walmart and being followed, and, with all the human trafficking going on and people being kidnapped, like you see a lot of it going on, and they're at these public places like Walmart, where you're not thinking that, oh, this can't happen to me. You're just in there shopping. And that's when you become an easy target, because you're looking at other things. You're looking down. You're not paying attention, and you're easy. It's easy to grab and go.
Yeah. And another thing is, stay off your fucking phones when you're out in public. That's a problem. If you're sitting there scrolling on your phones, that's a distraction. And I'm sorry, but in this day and age, you can't be distracted.
Yeah.
You need, especially if you're a single woman out there by yourself or with your kids, you putting your head down and playing on your phone could be the difference between life and death.
Yeah.
Like that. Stay off your phones, pay attention to your surroundings, and get strapped and protect yourself. And then parents of these young ladies that are, sorry, my microphone keeps doing that. I don't know why. But parents of these young ladies who, have them in dorms, or they have roommates and they're living off campus or living on their own. You need to pull your girls to the side, and you need to speak to them and be like, hey, listen, this is what I want you to do. Buy them a gun, send them to classes to learn how to use it and to be able to protect themselves.
Yes.
Okay. Because look, say there's two women, right? You're looking at two women. You see two women at Walmart. Let's say Walmart. I always use Walmart because it fucking seems like everything happens there.
God,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. And, the reason for that is because they think, most people that shop at Walmart are lower in the society class, and people aren't really going to pay attention to what's happening to them. I think that's kind of like a mindset that people have, because it's always so crowded. Nobody's really paying attention to anything that's going on there. But what you need to do, or what I was saying is, so you got a woman here and a woman here. Okay, so you got two pretty girls, and they're in Walmart. And you look at them. One of them has a side piece on him, right? Strapped. Mm-hmm. The other one doesn't. Mm-hmm. The other one of them staring down at their phone, not even paying attention to their little kids running around, because that happens a lot. And little kids are abducted like that all the time.
Right from the car. Right
You're
by the car.
You're an instant target.
Yeah.
For these people. You're an instant target. You need to have a little bit of street smarts. And I know that, a lot of parents don't teach their kids street smarts because the parents themselves aren't from the street and don't have street smarts, or a lot of them don't believe it's against their belief system.
Or they don't think that it could ever happen.
Or they don't think it can happen to them. They're like, oh, well, that happened. It can't happen to me. But the problem is everybody who's the victim of a violent crime, anybody who's the victim of a murder, thought the exact same thing. It's never going to happen to me. So you need to be prepared at all times. Yeah. And, I really wish that this case with the Idaho students was getting way more coverage than it is, because this is a learning experience for all you single women that are living alone, that aren't living with a man, younger generation that are going to bars, that are going to clubs, that are drinking every day. These things can happen, and they do happen, and they will continue to happen. And the only way to stop it from happening to you is you need to take certain steps. And those steps are: get yourself some protection, learn self-defense, pay attention to your surroundings,
Trust your instinct.
quit being buried in your phone. And instincts are key. Trust your instincts. Always look around. Yes. Always watch what's going on, because you could see that little creepy motherfucker, and they're not hard to spot. I see them all the time. And a lot of it's not the way that they really look, it's just their eyes and the way they carry themselves. And I learned that when I was on the inside as a survival instinct is body language, the way they carry themselves. Are they stiff? How loose are they acting? You know what I mean? How are they going about what they're doing? Do they seem nervous?
Yeah.
All these things are stuff that you could pick up on if you just pay attention and take your fucking head out of your phone.
Yeah.
And it will save your life, I'm telling you. But, as far as this situation goes, I think that it was probably a opportunist. It was probably an opportunist. And I think the police should be looking into the delivery services like that. I think that might have something to do with it. It could. It seems logical.
Yeah. Well, it's still ongoing, right?
Yeah. And most of the people that work for companies like DoorDash, and I've met some really nice DoorDash people. They actually come with their kids, and they're working, they're trying to hustle, right? But I've also seen some creepy ass ones.
Yeah, I have too.
I've seen some creepy ones where I'm like, oh shit, dude, And that's why when we order it, my wife is always like, hey, go get the DoorDash. Hey, come in. And I always make sure my presence is shown. Yeah. Like, yeah, motherfucker, I wish you would try some bullshit like that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I'll fucking kill him. I mean, you fuck with my family, you come into my house, anything like that. And like I said, my wife is always strapped anywhere she goes. You try to run up, she's going to use lethal force.
I see you.
She sees you. She's always paying attention.
Always. Even if I may look like I'm not paying attention, I am.
She's paying attention. She's called me twice with some shit like that. So, and we don't go to Walmart, just so you know. We try to avoid that fucking place.
I hate Walmart. I hate Target. I hate these big box corporations. I like to shop small.
Yeah, but pay attention to your surroundings. Pay attention to your even your Amazon delivery or your UPS or any of
FedEx
these
drivers.
People are opportunists, and that's how most criminals operate.
Work, yeah.
So I hope, everybody's gathered some insightful information from this. And, ladies, single ladies that are out there living on your own, please take what we said into consideration. Really think about it, because this is a horrible tragedy, and we need to do, and you need to do whatever you can to avoid something like that happening to you.
Even the young man that was involved too, though, like you need to raise men. It's so important.
Yeah. Parents, raise your children as men.
Yeah.
As men.
Strong.
Because, you just never know.
Yeah.
It happens.
Well,
just
look
like
at we saw that boy, that young man, that wrestler that attacked a bear because the bear was attacking his friend.
That's a man.
That's a fucking man. That's a bad motherfucker right there. Yeah. You know what I mean?
That's a man. And it was just one of his teammates, but he's like, I'm not going to sit here and watch my teammate get attacked and killed in front of me. He's like, I'm going to step up and I'm going to do something.
Yeah.
And that's the way adolescents, men and boys right now need to be raised to, but a lot of the problem that lies in that is a lot of the parents, the men aren't men,
Yeah.
you know, and they have, you know, women, and I'm not downing women in any way, but they got women that are gawking them and that run shit. They run the relationship and they run
really,
all over
but
the
see,
men.
the women that do that really want the man to take charge.
Yeah, but they don't.
know?
So they need to take charge. But you guys got to raise, you know, your children. And I'm not saying that has anything to do with these poor teenagers that lost their lives. And to the parents of those teenagers, you know,
I'm so sorry.
So heartfelt. I mean, I couldn't even imagine. I can't even imagine what you're going through. But if I were you guys, I would be very upset that this case is not getting the attention that it should. And I'd really be upset that the president of the United States even has said nothing about it, nor has he gave you guys a call to even wish his condolences.
Yeah.
And that is fucking sad. I'm Mr. Big, and this is the American Youth Show.
Kelly.
Thanks for listening.